Good morning and welcome to this webinar in which we're going to be sharing 15 tips to make the most of your 2025 top rated status. I know the marketing promised 12, the team got a bit carried away. I'm Alex, MD of Vouch4. Hopefully you're all familiar with what we do. The nutshell is that we're passionate about the value of good advice and want to help everyone access it. Across our Elevation and Vouch4 products, we now help close to 15,000 advisors understand, deliver, and showcase great client experience. The fuel in that engine is, of course, client feedback. I'm delighted to be joined by two experts who both bring invaluable perspectives to this session, Phil and Lee. Very warm welcome to you both. I'll ask you each to just give the audience a quick introduction to yourselves, starting perhaps with you, Phil.
Yes, Alex. So I'm Phil, the director and founder of the Yardstick Agency. We're a marketing agency that helps financial advisors, financial planners, and mortgage brokers improve their marketing, win more business, and achieve their business goals.
Thanks, Phil. And Lee?
Hi, I'm Lee Waters. I'm the chief executive and owner of Barwell's Wealth. We're a small to medium-sized IFA firm based in Sussex. We've got 3 advisors, about 240 client families we look after, and around about 100 million or so of assets.
Excellent. Thanks, Lee. So what are we going to cover? I'll set the scene with the importance of building trust and the power of top rated. I'll chat you through what we've got planned for 2025 in terms of the top rated guide and associated campaign. I'll share with you some of the top rated tools that you now have access to. And then with Phil and Lee's help, we'll talk through 15 tips to make the most of your top rated status. We'll then share a checklist to ensure that you're doing all the things that you can to make the most of it. And then we'll get through as many of your questions as we can. Do please keep them coming in using the Q&A tab on your screen. I will, as I say, try and get through as many as I can, either as we go or at the end. So to set the scene, I don't know if any of you saw the Advice Gap report produced by the Lancat. If not, I'd recommend taking a look. It's a really good piece of research. What it shows is that of the millions of people in the UK who have never received financial advice, only 1 in 5 say that they're likely to pay for it in future. And if you look at the things that would need to change for the remainder to consider paying for financial advice in future, trust and awareness remain central to them. So a large proportion say they'd need to be convinced that advice would save them money. Similar proportions say they'd need to be sure they could trust the advice, and then just over 20% so they'd need to be sure how to pick the right advisor. I've talked a lot about trust and awareness in recent years, and it's frustrating that they remain such blockers to people engaging with advice, because it's very clear from our data that most advisors do brilliant work. Here's just a sample of client feedback left recently on our site. It's important to call out that while these statements are incredibly powerful, these are very much the rule rather than the exception. Most of the feedback left on our site is incredibly positive. It's a bit for you in the top right there, Lee. A financial wizard, no less. Great to see. It's all very good us banging on about the value of good advice, but ultimately, it's nothing without evidence. And what better evidence is there than client stories like these? So huge congratulations to all those of you listening who have qualified as top rated in 2025. It's been a record year in terms of the number of advisors who have qualified, which is brilliant to see. Top rated status can help your business fly, as these stats illustrate. So comparing the stats seen by top-rated advisors on our site last year versus non-top rated advisors, top-rated advisors got twice as many people Googling their name and then clicking through to read their reviews on Vouch4. So 2.5 times as many people visit their profiles directly, having clicked on a link, such as on a reputation tool. And so just over 2 times as many potential inquiries. That's where someone comes to your Vouch4 profile and spends at least a minute on it. But a key point here is that the advisors who get the most value out of being top rated don't treat it as a set and forget. They really make the most of it, as Brian Hill's story illustrates. So Brian was the boss and planner at Jones Hill, and mainly just through being top rated and promoting it effectively through local press, he added 30 million in AUM over 3 years and ultimately achieved a successful exit to Perspective. Just before we dive into the guide and ways that you can make the most of it, we're going to run a quick poll and ask which of these growth channels are you focusing on in 2025. We've got a few options: buying businesses, client referrals, professional referrals, buying leads, content marketing, social media. Select all that apply. Just while we're waiting, Lee, what would you answer to this?
I think the two biggest for me, probably client referrals and professional referrals, continuing to build with our professional connections.
Good stuff. Early results look like the audience are in a similar camp. Had well over 100 responses. I will stop it there and have a quick look at the results. So yes, client referrals are the clear winner, 88% of you focusing on them in 2025. Behind that, professional referrals, 60% of you. Behind that, and this is great to see, I think this is probably an increase on recent years, 47% focusing on social media. Imagine you'll be pleased with that, Phil. And then content marketing, 27%, buying leads, 14%. Love to see that. Brilliant. Not a fan of paid for lead gen for reasons I can bore you with at length. Good. Well, hopefully we can share some tips to help with those things in the course of this session. So we've got big ambitions for the guide campaign in 2025, with sharing powerful human stories really sitting at the heart of them. On the left, you can see some of the things that we've done in recent years, such as putting the guide in the Times, the Telegraph, sending out an email with the guide to accountants and solicitors, doing lots of stuff on social media. We're going to continue to do all of that, but we're also going to introduce some new elements, as you can see on the right-hand side. So sharing human stories through more channels. Going to be running national awards, going to be running a digital regional guide, and also a financial explainer series. I'll quickly just give you an overview of some of those things. So the print guide, which includes content that helps people understand advice and appreciate its value, will be published in the Times on the 15th of March and in the Telegraph on the 25th of June. It also, of course, includes league tables showing all those advisors and firms who have qualified as top rated. What we're also going to be doing, you may have seen some of this already, is publishing more client stories in the national press. On the right, you can see a snippet of an ad that went into the Times recently. We're also creating a video ad all about the value of advice, which brings to life some of the stories that have been left on our site, and that's going to be shared extensively online. We're also launching a deliberately different type of awards ceremony, which is going to be taking place on the 8th of May in Mayfair. There's only going to be 14 categories, very much focused on clients. Each award will get due focus and recognition. The shortlist and winners will be decided purely by our data. There won't be any judges involved. And the evening, what I really want is for everyone who's there and everyone who sees any of the material around the event to leave with a fuzzy feeling, I guess, about the why behind all that we do, right? The real stories that sit at the heart of advice, the people whose lives have been transformed for the better because of it. Some key info, so I've shared the date and venue. The shortlist will be announced in the coming weeks. Shortlisted firms will receive some social assets to promote the fact they've been shortlisted, as well as a free ticket. I don't want price to be a barrier to entry for shortlisted firms sending someone along. And in year one, the event will be invitation only, so you won't be able to buy tickets. We may change that in future years. We want to really deliver a brilliant event in year one and then look at ways to grow it in the following years. We're also launching a financial explainer series, which will basically be really short, jargon-free guides helping people understand key topics such as those on screen. And all of this is really being turbocharged, the reach of it extended by the support of two brilliant partners in BlackRock and Fundment. And BlackRock actually has created some content to help advisors answer some of the client questions that may be prompted by the guide. So two of the key themes within the guide are around the psychology of investing and also rethinking retirement. If you'd like links to this content, please just type in client cues to the chat section on your screen. So what tools do you now have access to? As you can see on Lee's profile on the left, it tells the world that he is top rated 2025. And there's also a banner declaring that within the search results on the right. He gets a top rated certificate. Top rated report, which just goes into more detail on why he qualified as top rated. Email signatures. So if you qualified for 1 year, you get 1 year of consecutive years, you get one more along the lines of the one on the right. Social assets. These should have been emailed to you yesterday by our qualifications team. If you haven't received them for any reason, let us know. I'll share an email address later on. LinkedIn banner, Zoom background. You can also, if you wish to, buy a trophy from our store, top rated trophy, that's store.vouchworld.co.uk, or buy copies of the guide. We do send out a complimentary copy of the guide to everyone who qualifies, but if you'd like more to give out to prospects and clients, you can buy them from the store. So let's dive into some of the top tips. Top tip number 1, update your website, newsletter, email signature, etc., with your top rated tools. Phil, keen for your input here, because there are ways that advisors can really make the most of this. What would you suggest?
I think there's a bunch of things. Let's focus on website. The website is an incredibly important part of a prospect's digital journey to an advisor's door. So, for example, someone might have seen an advisor or a firm in the guide, and I think looking at the Q&A, somebody asked a few minutes ago about how well, it was an anonymous attendee, Alex, so how will somebody choose an advisor from a relatively long list in the guide? And one of the things they will do is they will get the advisor's name, Lee Waters, or they'll get the firm's name, Barwell's Wealth, and they'll Google them. They've got time on their hands over the weekend. They've got your beautiful guide, and they've got their phone, their iPad, or their laptop. So they're going to Google the firm. And ultimately, they will end up on the firm's website. So really important that we update the website with your rep tools and not have, frankly, all the information in one place either. We need to scatter the social proof, in this case, specifically the rep tools, the top advisor badges, etc., and the rating review widget throughout the site. So people see them wherever they go. Wherever they go on the site, whatever pages they look at, and people don't go on a linear journey on your website, they will click all over the place. So we need to make sure that we're putting social proof, and in this particular case, your rep tools, under their nose. Then newsletter template. Your newsletter, in our view, and this is a hill I would die on, the newsletter should be sent every month to clients. Month in, month out, to clients, prospects, and professional connections. And by putting the rep tools in the template, again, that gives the people who receive it a nudge that they're either working with a top-rated advisor, or there's a top-rated advisor who's communicating with them and waiting for them. And then the email signature, we all send lots of emails every day. We all receive dozens of emails every day. And again, just putting the rep tool in the bottom of the new email signature is a nudge that, in this case, Lee is top-rated and therefore must be doing something right to be a financial wizard, as per the previous quote.
Brilliant. Thank you, Phil. Just to address a couple of the questions that come on, someone's pointed out that the chat wasn't working for them, in which case, yeah, if you do want that BlackRock content, you can pop the client queues request into the Q&A tab, as many of you have done. A couple of people asking about recording as well, because they need to leave early. So yes, there will be a recording of this circulated afterwards. And one more quick question around the assets. So you didn't receive the social assets yesterday. No problem. We'll make sure that you receive them, Carol, and there will be another email including them all closer to the date of publication. Let's move on to our second tip. So you can strengthen your welcome pack and other literature by including your top-rated report and top-rated certificate. I know lots of advisors who have done that with great success. You can make an impression in your office using things like the guide, top-rated certificate, and top-rated trophy. Understand this is something you do, Lee. So how do you use these assets like this in your interactions with prospects and clients?
So the guides, we have the printed copies of the guides in our waiting area. We also have relationship with a reasonably large local law firm who have 5 offices. We have copies of the guides in all of their waiting rooms as well. Same with the accountant that we use. We use the trophy. We've got a nicely growing trophy cabinet now in our meeting room, and it's just it's a good way of just prompting a conversation. It's not done by us. It's always done by the client, especially new clients. They might have a look and say, "Oh, what's that? What have you done to do that?" And you just have a quick chat through. So it's a really good way of introducing the concept of feedback right at the very beginning.
Good stuff. I mean, certainly from what we hear from members a lot, they're often, well, they're almost always familiar with the concept of feedback. And they often get confused by a lot of the trust badges that the industry bandies about. They don't fully understand what all the different qualifications mean and so on. Many of them know our brand. All of them, the vast majority, will know the Times brand. So sharing these with them is a really powerful way to build trust. We've then got these firm level tools. So if you've qualified as a top-rated firm, you will also get access to these tools, which you can use in similar ways to what we've just been talking about. Second section really relates to sharing the news, and this is so important with clients, prospects, and professional connections. So sharing the news with clients encourages more of them to refer to you. Our data shows that 83% of your clients are more likely to recommend you having read your voucher for reviews. And that isn't to say they didn't think you were great to begin with. It's just reassuring for them, if they're going to take the huge step of telling someone about you, to know that it's not just them who thinks that you're great. Encourages more prospects to take that big step into becoming a client, and encourages more professional connections to recommend people to you. So there's a few top tips within this section. The first is sharing the news with contacts on social media. It was great to see in the poll, Phil, that 47% of people are going to use social media as a way to grow their business in 2025. Any tips to help them maximize the virality of anything they post?
The virality? Let's go with 3 things. I think the first thing for me is to make your post stand out. Make it scroll stopping. So whichever channel we're talking about here, whether it's X, Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, they all have a feed. And as people scroll down their feed, your post will only stand a chance of going viral or getting engagement if people pause to look at it and then engage with it. So the post needs to be what I would call scroll stopping. And one of the best ways to stop the scroll is through carefully chosen imagery. And again, one of the best ways to choose images is to make it personal. So for me, I would be posting an image of maybe on the Saturday morning when you release the guide, an image of the advisor reading it, the advisor pointing to their name in the guide, a little video of them picking up the guide out of the Times on their doormat, just something to stop the scroll. So that's the first thing, Alex. The second thing is post more than once about it. There's stats on LinkedIn to show that only about 18% of people see, 18% of your connections will see the post. So therefore, we need to post more than once about it. Don't worry about posting it 2-3 times on the same channels. You might mix up the message. You basically say the same thing with different words. So stop the scroll, post more than once. And then think about other ways of social. Actually, prioritize your personal accounts rather than the company accounts. People don't want to necessarily engage with logos and brands. They do want to engage with people. So, for example, if we ran a split test and put up the same post up on Lee's LinkedIn account and Barwell's Wealth LinkedIn account, and everything else was exactly the same, the post on Lee's personal account would get more engagement. So stop the scroll through good imagery, good maybe video, post more than once, and prioritize personal accounts.
Brilliant. Great tips, Phil. And I'd certainly echo the personal accounts point. So according to my marketing team, I've been a bit lax in leveraging LinkedIn as much as I could. I have a reasonable following now, but it's probably about a quarter of VouchedFors. And yet, whenever I post something from my account, it achieves exponentially more engagement than anything we post through the VouchedFor account. We will also be doing a post on the morning of Saturday, the 15th of March, which is when the Times version is published. So do look out for that, comment on that and share that alongside your own posts. It's just a nice, easy, quick win. And do as we say, share the news with existing prospects and clients. You might have a newsletter set up or want to send out a bespoke email. Lee, how do you go about this? How do you share the news with your prospects and clients?
So we have a bespoke email that goes out to clients, and then we have a separate one that goes out to professional connections as well. We have a dual branded one that goes out to our professional connections. Similar content, similar wording, but just we feel that having the dual brand, it really sort of strengthens that relationship and with the professional connection, but also sending it out to the client, just really telling them that we've qualified what we've done to qualify and thanking them for their input in qualifying. And actually we get a lot of replies to those emails, congratulatory replies, well done, reassurance that we've chosen you, but it's good to know that other people feel the same way about you, which is always nice to hear.
That's brilliant. On the professional connections point, so solicitors in particular are under a lot more pressure from their regulator to make sure that they refer responsibly to financial advisors. So I've referred to Dave because having to play golf with him on a Saturday doesn't really cut it as far as their regulatory body is concerned. So they need evidence to justify why they've made a recommendation to a financial advisor. And brilliant client feedback can really help with that. I also know of many of our members who have said to referring professional connections, if you refer to me, I'll happily share with you the feedback of anyone that you send my way, which can just provide powerful further validation as well. Solicitors need to create a due diligence report justifying why they've made a recommendation. This is a very rough, basic template, but if you can supply that to them, you'll up your chances of securing a good relationship that generates lots of referrals. Then sharing a press release with local media, which was the mainstay of what Brian did to drive those stats that I shared a bit earlier. Now, there's a big difference between sharing a press release that gets picked up and engaged with versus one that doesn't. Phil, any kind of key ingredients you'd recommend people include?
Yeah, so the first thing is make sure you send it direct to a journalist if you can. Pick and choose your journalist carefully. This is not something I don't think for the national press, but it is local press. And you've got the picture of Tony there, I think it is, on the Northamptonshire Chamber website. So pick the press that you want to send it to carefully. Send it to a named person. Really importantly, send it to a named person. Keep the press release down to 2 pages. Keep it really, really short. The ideal press release is one that a journalist can cut and paste into the article pretty much without changing it. So make the journalist's life easy. Send a really good quality picture with it. Journalist is far more likely to use a press release if there's a good quality, high resolution picture, not a small 100 pixel by 100 pixel picture, but that would really work well. Bonus points, a picture of the advisor and the trophy would be good. And then finally, I do like to send press releases about 7 a.m. in the morning. So it's pretty much top of inbox when the journalist logs on. And when the journalist logs on at 7 o'clock, if they have got a press release, they can almost cut and paste into the article themselves, and they've got a good quality picture. You've made the journalist's life really easy. So 6 or 7 things there that will increase the chances of getting coverage in places like the Northamptonshire Chamber, the Dorset Chamber, etc.
Great advice. And if you don't happen to be working at 7 a.m. in the morning on a regular basis, you can, of course, schedule that email to get out at that point. Asking for recommendations is the second bit. And it's so very powerful because our data tells us that 87% of clients don't believe that they've had a discussion with their advisor about recommendations. The data also shows that asking for recommendations in the right way, and that's a crucial point we'll come on to, leads to 1 additional recommendation per client per year. So if you multiply that across your client base, it's pretty significant. Being top rated can really help. Within our system, if you click into an individual piece of feedback, so click on the manage feedback section when you log in, and then click into an individual piece of feedback. In the private responses section, you can see how likely that individual says they would be to recommend you out of 10, and whether they've had a conversation with you about it. So this is an excerpt from one of Lee's clients' feedback. They've given a 10 out of 10 in terms of how likely they'd be to recommend Lee, but they've not had a conversation with him about it. Now, we know advisors who just simply by working through a list of people that fall into that category have exponentially increased the number of referrals that they receive. Going about it in the right way is key. You know, when we ask advisors what's stopping them from talking about recommendations with their clients, often it's things like, I don't want to seem salesy. And I completely get that. Done in the right way, it doesn't need to feel salesy. Here's a way that one of our members approaches it. Phil, I know you talk a lot about coaching clients around sort of who to refer you to, how best to do it, etc. Can you offer any kind of key tips from that?
Yeah, I think you're right. Asking for me is completely the wrong thing to do. And when I say asking, I mean sitting down with a client and saying, right, who do you know? Open up your iPhone and give us some names. I just think it puts the client on the spot. It probably alienates the client, certainly makes the advisor feel uncomfortable. I just don't think it works. But it's interesting that your 87% figure. I think a couple of years ago, that was 85%. So this problem's getting worse. And for me, we've got to be more nuanced about it. And we need to accept that the best way of doing this and maximizing the referral and recommendation opportunity is through educating clients on who to recommend you to, how to do it, and when to do it. Educating clients on who to do it, how to do it, and when to do it. And for me, one of the best ways of doing that is through conversations with clients. So we would encourage advisors we work with, like Lee and a few others on this call, to have a conversation at the end of an annual review meeting with a client. If you're a mortgage broker, you've got to think about a different time to do this. But at the end of an annual review meeting, which is a business update, you're telling the client everything that's happening in the business. Comings and goings, new awards, vouched for, top rated, community work, charity work, that sort of stuff. You'll then turn in the conversation to talk about the business, how you want to grow the business, the fact that you like to grow the business through referrals and recommendations. If there are people that you want to recommend us to, these are typically who we work with. So we're educating the clients on who you work with so they recommend you to the right people. And then talking about how to do it, the difference between introducing and recommending. To bring it back right to the start, for me, this is not about asking, this is about having good quality conversations with people who are engaged in the business, probably more than the advisor thinks that they are.
Thank you. Added in this slide here, which breaks every possible rule around non-text heavy slides. I'm not going to go through it all now in the interests of time, But a key takeaway from it is to not treat referrals or recommendations as a kind of one-dimensional activity. Think of it more like a funnel. And our data really supports the need for that. So working through the key bits, our clients delighted enough to recommend you. Our data shows that most are happy, most say they'd recommend, but actually only around a quarter regularly do. So, you know, what can you do to get them to that delighted territory where they actually recommend you? The second is making sure that, you know, they're aware that you're open to recommendations along the lines of what Phil was just saying. Being top rated will massively help with that. And then it's about putting your best foot forward if anyone they recommend sends your way. So they check you out online, they see great reviews, they see all the checks that you've passed on our site, whatever it might be, they see your top rated tools so that they ultimately get in touch. Really important. Brilliant data from Phil shows that only 10% of those that are recommended actually get in touch. That's a massive drop-off point. And then obviously when you meet them, you want to make the best possible impression, and these tools can help with that. I won't go into any more detail on it now, but as I say, we will share the recording of this afterwards. And lastly, you know, as I said at the start, feedback is the fuel in our engine. And, you know, our data makes abundantly clear that the more feedback that you collect regularly on our platform, the more value you get. One of the ways that you can do that is to turn on annual feedback, which essentially every 12 months after you've invited feedback, we'll send it again. Before it does, you get a notification of who the system is planning to send feedback to. So you can block it if, for instance, someone's no longer a client. You can also invite prospect feedback. So this is a great way to build up reviews on your profile. Often you'll meet people who you can't maybe take on as a client. They're just not a viable client, but you offer them some helpful guidance and tips and ask them afterwards to leave you a first impression review. Response rate tends to be really great, and the comments great as well. And then lastly, reply to all reviews. It's a great way to demonstrate your professionalism and that you really care. Lee's profile is a great example. And I understand, Lee, you use Phil's new ChatGPT autoresponder. Can you chat us through a bit about how that works?
Yeah, we do. So prior to the responder, we still tried to reply, but it was quite a labor-intensive process. I mean, we got over 100 reviews, I think, last year. So that's a lot of time spent replying. So what the GPT responder does is it asks you a few questions initially about whether you want to include the client's name, and what type of feedback it is, and then you cut and paste the whole of the review left by the client into the GPT responder, and then it gives you that, what you can see on the screen in front of you. It gives you that response to go back to the client. It needs a little bit of sense checking, but other than that, it's pretty accurate.
Brilliant. We were going to post a link to it in the chat, but as the chat doesn't seem to be working for people, we won't do that. I will, however, shortly share Phil's email address with you. So Phil, are you happy if people drop you a note and you share it with them?
Yeah, if you just, if anybody wants it, just send me an email, phil@theyardstickagency.co.uk, and just put the words review responder into the subject line. Nothing else, just review responder, and we'll send that out.
Brilliant. Thank you. So quick recap. Update your website, newsletter, and email signature with your top-rated tools. Add your certificate and report to your welcome pack. Build trust during meetings with the Zoom background and certificate. Use the firm level tools as well if you've qualified for them. Share the news using social media. Look out for a comment on our guide post. Make sure you tell professional connections and help them with their due diligence. Being top-rated will help. Send a press release to local media. Use your dashboard, your account, to see which clients will be most likely to recommend you. It's a great, being top rated is a great reason to reach out. Usually their feedback has played a part in you being top rated, so they're kind of involved in your success. Ask for recommendations, or rather discuss recommendations in the right way. Think of generating referrals as a funnel rather than a kind of one-off, a one-dimensional activity. Collect regular feedback and reply to all feedback that you get. We'll share all of these so that you can make sure that you've got them all. We've got 10 minutes left, and in it, I'm going to do my best to get through many of the brilliant questions that have come in. So I'll start with some quick practical ones. We will, for anyone that hasn't got the electronic copies of the social backgrounds and that kind of thing, we will be sending them out again prior to publication. So no worries on that front. There's a request for example posts, like social posts. I'll make sure that the guys share that as well. We'll be sharing a kind of top tips email prior to the guide publication. So we'll include that within the email. Then question about Google reviews. So the interplay between kind of Google reviews, VouchedFor reviews. My view is both are helpful and they do different things. Phil, very much your area of expertise. Could you offer a thought on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Google and VouchedFor reviews are both incredibly important. I think one thing we need to just make clear here is we're not necessarily asking clients to leave reviews on both. We need to reframe that. We're giving clients choice about where they want to leave you a review. Very briefly, Google reviews are important because when someone does a search for your business, so Barwell's Wealth, for example, or whatever the business name is, then the Google reviews come up. Top right-hand side, above the fold in the Google business profile, it is a great way of impressing somebody really early on in their digital journey to your door. And you've already shown, Alex, what was it, 88% of people look up the advisor online beforehand. They're also a local SEO ranking factor. VouchedFor reviews are important because they come up when the advisor's name is Googled, Lee Waters, where Google reviews don't. In that circumstance, both sets of reviews can be embedded on your website as well. And last thing I would say, much easier to get VouchedFor reviews than it is Google reviews. For every one Google review you get, you'll get between 5 and 10 on VouchedFor. Doesn't mean Google reviews are less important. It's just easier to leave a review on VouchedFor for various reasons. So short answer, both are really important.
Thank you, Phil. Someone missed your email address earlier. Do you mind just quickly sharing it again? In fact, actually, I'll move on a slide because I think I've got it on the next slide. There we go. phil@theyardstickagency.co.uk. Another question, just asking for a recap on what publications the guide will appear. So it's the Times and the Telegraph, as well as a regional digital guide that will be distributed through regional press. We've had a question around, so someone's kind of a newer advisor starting out. They don't have loads of clients, therefore it's harder to build the volume of feedback that they would like. Lee, interested in your thoughts here. At what stage in your journey did you start inviting feedback, and do you have any tips?
Yeah, we try to invite feedback right from the beginning. So prospects, we ask prospects for feedback. We have a QR code, little document that we hand out to everybody as well, which it sort of reduces the barriers to giving feedback. But we found by asking prospects, it helped us understand perhaps why conversion rates weren't as good as they could be. We also found that it introduced the concept of feedback really early, and it sort of helped us convert clients because it showed them right from the beginning that we were quite serious about doing a good job for them. So I would encourage anyone they speak to, whether they can help them or not, seek to get them to leave feedback.
Anything you'd add on that, Phil?
I agree completely with Lee. I spent all this webinar agreeing with you, Alex, and agreeing with Lee. There is a fear among some advisors that they can't ask for reviews really early on in the relationship, and that there's some magical date, 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days into the relationship where they can suddenly start asking for reviews. And I just don't think it works that way. In the same way, some people will refer the advisor on even before they become a client. New clients are very, very happy to leave reviews. And I think that's because, Alex, in the early days of the relationship between the planner and the client, there's huge value added to the client by the planner. And the client gets huge peace of mind, confidence, reassurance about working with the planner. It's the perfect time to be asking for reviews. And as Lee said, it introduces at a really early stage the concept of giving feedback.
Absolutely. We've had a question asking about how people can choose between such a big list, which is a very valid question. There is a section within the guide which is called How to Use the Guide, which addresses exactly this point, and it offers tips to help people ultimately home in on the right advisor for them. So there's a range of different tips within that. One is looking for advisors that have received feedback from people like them. So on your Vouch For profile, if you scroll down, there'll be a demographic section, which basically shows the profile of people that have left you feedback. And that's really important because you'll see that advisors are doing a great job, but they've all got slightly different client banks, right, in terms of affluence level, age, these kind of things. So if you can find an advisor that is doing a really brilliant job for people like you, then you can take a lot of confidence from that. Another tip that we suggest is that people ask their advisor how many clients they have in total so that they can understand what proportion of those clients have left them feedback on the site. That's really important. So if, for instance, an advisor has 40 clients and 30 of them have left them glowing reviews, that could be a greater cause for encouragement than, say, an advisor's got 100 clients, but only 30 of them have left them feedback. So there's various other tips. I would, have a look out for that section within the guide. And I would also, from the advisor perspective here, just do everything that we've been talking about to make sure that you really stand out from the crowd. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so I'm going to try 2 more questions. Tony has asked, do you have an example press release for a local newspaper to put out? Yeah, we can certainly share that with you, Tony. We'll include it in the top tips email that goes out before the guide is published. And we've had a question from Rohit asking, are client videos talking about their experience a good idea? How do you overcome the reluctance clients may have to put themselves out there publicly? I'll offer a quick word on this. We've been collecting a lot of client case studies, not always video, but often in print recently, and have been really encouraged by the number of clients that are happy to share their story and give their advisor due celebration. I know that on the video point specifically, Phil, you've created lots of client videos. Is there any advice that you can give to Rohit here?
Yeah, absolutely. So our client testimonial video is important. I think they're incredibly important. Most firms don't have them. So if you do, you stand out. Second, it is pretty much the only practical way of getting existing clients to tell prospective clients the value of working with you. And some clients will absolutely be reluctant to appear in video. Don't try and persuade them, just accept the fact that they don't want to do it. But in my experience, if you ask enough clients in the right way, they will agree to do the video. One of the things we've developed is a email template that you can use to ask clients to appear in videos. So if anybody wants that, just send me an email, put video template into the subject line, and I'll send you that as well. But Lee, you've done some client videos. We did them for you, I think.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Maybe you can talk about your experiences of asking clients.
Yeah, we used the email template initially. And then when we got a sort of tentative response, we followed it up with a phone call and just tried to explain the process to make it, it was very, very easy. It was all done on their phone. So Phil sends out a little tripod for them to put their phone on, and just sort of setting the scene as to what was expected of them. I think that sort of settled a lot of nerves. I think the initial thought was somebody was going to turn up with lights and a huge camera, and it was going to be intimidating. So removing those sorts of barriers was really important. We didn't have an awful lot of pushback. We found that most people that we asked, I mean, we obviously cherry picked who we thought was going to be receptive to it, but we found most people were quite happy to sit down and talk. And the results are really good. It's a nice feeling actually to to hear your clients telling somebody else how happy they are with you.
Brilliant. Thank you both. I'm going to slightly stretch and just answer two more very quick questions because I can give them a quick answer. Can inquirers on your site filter by independent or restricted advisors? Yes, they can. How often would you suggest asking clients to leave feedback throughout the year? Our data suggests that if you invite them once every 12 months, often after an annual review, it is a good time. It doesn't in any way impact response rate, and they're very happy to leave feedback once a year. I will end it there because we're at time, but many thanks to everyone for joining us and for all the great questions. We will follow up with all those of you that have asked us a question that we haven't managed to address in this session. If you would like a quicker answer, feel free to email us at customer_service@voucherable.co.uk, or if it's Phil related, feel free to drop him an email. Massive thank you to you and Phil. Phil and Lee, for lending us your time and insights this morning. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you for having us on.
I hope everyone has a good day. Thank you very much indeed.